sessions, the commentary from Surah Al-Baqarah. And tonight we're going to start with ayah number 280. So we're going to have about a page and a half reading in Arabic. And then after that we will get into the commentary and into the translation of these passages. This is the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. We're talking about the last 2 pages of Surah Al-Baqarah. And these ayahs that we're going to talk about, they are very, very essential in terms of transactions, financial transactions, in terms of witnessing, and so on. So we will be dealing with those. I'm going to try not to get too deep into the fiqh details of these ayahs, but I'm going to give you, inshallah, not just the meaning, but a little bit of the commentary. And as I said, since we have a lot, we're going to try to go fast at it, inshallah. So let's start right away with ayah number 280, actually. 280. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإن كان ذو عسرة فنظرة إلى ميسرة وأن تصدقوا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون واتقوا يوما ترجعون فيه إلى الله ثم توفى كل نفس ما كسبت وهم لا يظلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا تداينتم بدين إلى أجل مسمى فاكتبوه وليكتب بينكم كاتب بالعدل ولا يأب كاتب أن يكتب كما علمه الله فليكتب وليملل الذي عليه الحق وليتق الله ربه ولا يبخس منه شيئا فإن كان الذي عليه الحق سفيها أو ضعيفا أو لا يستطيع أن يمل هو فليملل وليه بالعدل واستشهدوا شهيدين من رجالكم فإن لم يكونا رجلين فرجل وامرأتان ممن ترضون من الشهداء أن تضل إحداهما فتذكر إحداهما الأخرى ولا يأبى الشهداء إذا ما دعوا ولا تسأموا أن تكتبوا صغيرا أو كبيرا إلى أجله ذلكم أقسط عند الله وأقوم للشهادة وأدنى ألا ترتابوا إلا أن تكون تجارة حاضرة تديرونها بينكم فليس عليكم جناح ألا تكتبوها وأشهدوا إذا تبايعتم ولا يضار كاتب ولا شهيد وإن تفعلوا فإنه فسوق بكم واتقوا الله ويعلمكم الله والله بكل شيء عليم وإن كنتم على سفر ولم تجدوا كاتبا فرهان مقبوضة فإن أمن بعضكم بعضا فليؤدي الذي اؤتمن أمانته وليتق الله ربه ولا تكتموا الشهادة ومن يكتمها فإنه آثم قلبه وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ عَلِيمٌ. So again, we started from ayah 280 all the way to ayah 283. Ayah number 280 says, if it is difficult for someone to repay a debt, postpone it until a time of ease. And if you waive it as an act of charity, it will be better for you if only you knew. What are we dealing here with? We're dealing with, when it comes to Asbab al-Nuzul, reasons of revelations, we talked about a few tribes in Mecca and Ta'if. People from Banu Mughira from Mecca, from the Quraysh, have given loan to Banu Amr bin Umayr. Banu Amr bin Umayr is a clan of the big tribe of Banu Thaqifa. And they were located in the city of Ta'if. So now, Banu Mughira, they want the money. And they're saying, okay, if the Quran came down and it says that there is no interest that should be involved, we understand that. But now we want our capital money back. So they're demanding it right away. And now the other tribe says that, look, give us some time because we don't have it ready. But now they're still demanding it. So they bring this to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and a verse from the Quran was revealed in regards to this case. And the first ayah right here, it says, if it is difficult for someone to repay a debt, postpone it until a time of ease. Meaning that when you have the ability, look at the other person, or in this case the tribe who you have given that loan, and see when they are available to give it. Don't be harsh on them. Don't be demanding it right away. So give them the time, make it easy on them, and when they have it, they can pay. And then it says, and if you waive it as an act of charity, it will be better for you if only you knew. Meaning that if you have given to somebody a loan and you have the ability to forgive them because the person is in difficulty, doesn't have the money to repay you back, and you understand that, he's not playing around with you, right? But you see the situation that it is too hard for the person to repay back that money, Quran says, forgive it. In other words, let it go, if you can. And he says, خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ تَصَدَّقُوا وَأَن تَصَدَّقُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. If you give it as a charity, sadaqah, it is better for you, إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, only if you knew about it. Meaning that you don't know the full rewards that you will receive from your Creator for doing so. If you really would know the rewards and what awaits for you in the hereafter in terms of Jannah and in terms of being close to your Creator and so on, and the beauty of paradise, then you would have acted differently. But again, this is not mandatory, right? This is for those who can, who could do it, who could just let it go and consider it as a sadaqah. That's the first ayah. Next ayah says, be mindful of the day when you will all be returning to Allah. Then every soul will be paid in full for what it has done, and none will be wronged. So again, Allah is reminding the people that, look guys, if you're going to be involved in transactions that are going to be haram, prohibited, if you're going to take from people interest, or if you're going to give to others, if you're going to take interest, or if you're going to give things with interest, right? Like in other words, if you get a loan with interest, or if you give a loan with interest, or if you're a witness, because the hadith, there is a sound hadith that talks about the witnesses are also involved in this. Not just the one who gives it and the one who takes it, but also the witnesses, and also the katib, the one who puts that in the records. All of these categories of people that are involved in ribawi transactions or interest-based transactions, they are all committing haram. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, be mindful of the day when you will all be returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this could also be connected to the last ayah that says, if you forgive it, like be mindful that in the day of judgment you're going to have a lot of rewards. So be aware of that. And every soul will be paid in full for what it has done. Like if you have done something good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not take anything out of it, but He will pay you in full. As a matter of fact, will increase the rewards in the hereafter. And none will be wronged. So there is no injustice on that day. Next ayah now, it's the ayah of dain. Now, we close the chapter that talks about interest, about riba, or usury. Now we come to a new, well, not technically a chapter as a surah, but another topic that Surah Al-Baqarah talks about. This is called the ayah to dain, the ayah of the loan. And it involves a person who writes it, why you should write it, witnesses and so on. So we'll get into the details of this one. But also it's important to note that Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he mentioned that these ayah were among the last ayahs that were revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And it makes sense because most of the ayahs that talk about rules and regulations, ayahs that talk about fiqh issues, right? The transactions and so on, they were revealed in the city of Medina. That's the main topic or the main themes of those ayahs. And as we know now, you're dealing with the tribe of Quraysh, the tribe of Ta'if, that they have embraced Islam. You're talking about that period when these places who used to be hostile to Rasulullah, now they have embraced Islam. So it's towards the end of his life. As a matter of fact, in the last year of his life. What does this longest ayah in the Quran talk about? Let's go into the meaning of the ayah first, and then we're going to go section by section. And I require you to be a little bit patient because it's the entire page and it's the longest ayah, as I said. All believers, when you contract a loan for a fixed period of time, commit it to writing. Let the scribe maintain justice between the parties. The scribe should not refuse to write as Allah has taught them to write. They will write what the debtor dictates, bearing Allah in mind and not defrauding the debt. If the debtor is incompetent, weak, or unable to dictate, let their guardian dictate for them with justice. Call upon two of your men to witness. If two men cannot be found, then one man and two women of your choice will witness. So if one of the women forgets, the other one may remind her. The witnesses must not refuse when they are summoned. You must not be against writing contracts for a fixed period, whether the sum is small or great. This is more just for you in the sight of Allah, and more convenient to establish evidence and remove doubts. However, if you conduct an immediate transaction among yourselves, then there is no need for you to record it, but call upon witnesses when a deal is finalized. Let no harm come to the scribe or witnesses. If you do, then you have gravely exceeded your limits. Be mindful of Allah, for Allah is the one who teaches you, and Allah has perfect knowledge of all things. So, it sounds kind of complicated, but in reality it's not that complicated, the ayah. There's a lot of words referring to the transactions and witnesses and so on. Let's take it section by section. O believers, when you contract a loan for a fixed period of time, committed to writing. From the beginning, we're dealing now with accuracy, and we're dealing, as a matter of fact, with one of the principles or the objectives of our Sharia, of the Islamic law, one of the maqasid of Sharia that talks about, or that stands for, the protection of the wealth, al-mal. Protection of wealth, it is one of the 5 objectives of our Sharia. The first one is protection of human life, and then protection of faith. Now we have the protection of mal, of wealth. And subhanAllah, this is very beautiful. Why? Because mal, wealth, it is something that people, they work hard in order to earn it. And on top of it is a risk. It is sustenance that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. It is a gift that we must preserve it and inquire. So, and Allah is establishing here in this ayah rules pertaining to how to be straightforward and how to be careful when we give money to other people, when we give from that wealth to the other people. And it says, now if you're given that loan for a fixed period of time, committed to writing, and we're dealing here not with something small, but with a big loan. We're not dealing here with a $10 loan or $100 loan or $500 loan that you give it to somebody, but we're dealing here with a bigger type of loan. And this is a serious case where you have to record it and you have to commit it to writing. Let the scribe, katib in Arabic, the scribe, the one who writes, maintain justice between the parties. The scribe should not refuse to write as Allah told them to write. In other words, you have two parties, right? Or you may have more than 2 parties. So maybe a party, maybe some people may not even know how to read and write. And now the scribe is writing what the other party is dictating. And since he doesn't know, or since that party doesn't not know how to read and write, again, we're dealing here 1400 years or 1500 years ago, right? Nowadays we have a higher percentage of people, higher level of people who know how to read and write all over the world, but 1500 years ago, they were you can spot them here and there, people who know how to read and write, only a few in the whole society. So now, it is possible that this scribe can write it down and intentionally say that, for example, Ahmed took a loan of $200,000 from Hussein, when in reality Ahmed took a loan of $150,000 but not $200,000. You see how the thing can happen there? And Ahmed doesn't know how to read and write, so he's just, So, or maybe put some conditions. Let's say that is not the case. It could be something else. Put some conditions that the receiver of that loan, the debtor, right, the receiver of that loan, does not necessarily agree. But he says, no, this is important, and trust me, I know what I'm doing. I'm the scribe here. So this is important. You have to fulfill these certain conditions. And the person doesn't have to fulfill those conditions. But that's what Allah is saying here. The scribe should not refuse to write it as Allah has taught them to write. In other words, the scribe has to be fair and has to be just, not to look for the interest of one particular party and drop the other party, right? Has to be fair and has to be good. They will write what the debtor dictates, bearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in mind and not defrauding the debt. So again, this is the explanation of what we just talked about. If the debtor is incompetent, meaning that remember I gave you the example of Ahmed and Hussein, right? Ahmed is the one who gets the money, the loan, tries to get the loan. So if Ahmed in this case, for example, is incompetent, weak or unable to dictate, meaning that the person may not even know how to put conditions, or how to write those conditions, or how to even, mention certain things, or how to even read, or whatever the case may be, then the Quran says, let their guardian dictate for them with justice. So it is possible for them to bring other people who are qualified as guardians, and then be there for them to dictate what the scribe is writing in the contract. They could be young, for example, right? Or they could be people who don't know much about these transactions and so on. So it's possible for you to bring somebody else who can dictate, who you trust, and they are your guardians, right? And they can dictate the scribe. And then right after that, it says, call upon two of your men to witness. So you have the one who's given the loan, you have the one who is receiving the loan, and you have the scribe so far. So far it's clear. Now we have the condition where you should have two witnesses. When I say a condition, I'm not saying a condition in a sense that it is fard to have these two witnesses. So whatever it is being mentioned here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala suggests to people. And they consider, the scholars for the madahibs, for schools of Islamic law, they consider this as the best approach, but they don't make this as farz upon people, as obligatory on people to follow this. But this would be the best way for them to do it. So now, as you have these, the debtor and the one who is given the loan and the scribe, now you need to have two witnesses to do what? To witness that. To say that yes, Ahmed took $200,000 from Hussein. And we are witnesses of that. And they write it down. They put their signatures and their names. Now, if two men cannot be found, then one man and two women of your choice will witness. Alright? If you cannot find two men to be witnesses, then one man and two women of your choice can be witnesses. Now right away, people can assume that the Quran now is being unfair in terms of witnesses or in terms of gender witnesses. Why we had two male and now if you cannot find two male, you have one male and two women? Well, the Quran has explained why. The Quran says, because it says, if one woman forgets, the other one may remind her. This is the illah in the in fiqh or usul al-fiqh. We come across illah. The concept of illah is the principal cause or the reason why something is happening. Like for example, when Allah says the alcohol is prohibited, what is the cause behind it? It is the intoxication, right? That's why it is prohibited. And that is explained in the hadith. So, right here Allah is saying that we need two witnesses if they are female, if they are women, right? That can be equal to one man. That's because of this illah. And the illah here, the principal cause or the reason is because one may forget and the other one may remind her. Now, the question is, why? Well, you're dealing with a different society. You're not dealing with a society of the 21st century. You're dealing with a society that used to be in the 7th century, 1500 years ago. And women back then and there, as it is the case in many countries even nowadays, they're not so involved in business transactions. They're not so involved in these financial transactions, in loans and debts and all of that, right? They're involved in other things based on their nature, but generally speaking, man would be involved in these transitions. So therefore, it is very important to know the context of this and not to jump into, as some people jump into a conclusion and they say, oh, Islam is unfair because look, you need one male and you need, he's equaling one male to two women as witnesses. This is gender inequality here. That's not true. That's when taking things out of context. You have to really look into the context, into the culture, into the involvement of the women back in those days. Now, to elaborate a little bit more into this, we also say that women, if that was the case that women two women are equal to one man in case of witnessing, then we would say that in every other transaction or in anything else that has to do with witnessing, women are going to be 2 against 1. But that's not the case. For example, when it comes to rada'ah, when it comes to breastfeeding, when it comes to child issues, when it comes to pregnancy, when it comes to monthly cycles, women, if there are witnesses in front of the judge, they don't have to be 2. 1 is good as a witness. So there is no requirement of 2 witnesses, which puts down the idea that 2 women are equal to 1 in all the other cases. Or even in case of zina, let's say for example, a woman accuses her husband that her husband has committed adultery and goes in front of the judge and says, "Judge, my husband has committed adultery." And judge listens and he asks li'an. There is a concept of li'an in the Quran where the woman in this case, for example, has to swear and say that he has done it 4 times. Or the man, if the man is accusing his wife in front of the judge. There is no witnesses. We know if there would be 4 witnesses, that's a different case. But here, we are dealing with individuals, husband and wife, where they're going in front of the judge and saying, "Judge, my husband has committed adultery with another woman. Therefore, I want a divorce. I want nothing to do with this person." Right away. And as long as she swears an oath 4 times, and then does the li'an at the end, then the husband as well accepts, right? Or the husband says, this happened, or this, whatever the case may be, then the case is over. There is no capital punishment in case there is no witnesses, right? So if the husband, is present and the woman is present, she doesn't need any other witnesses in order to accuse her husband and for the judge to result in separating both of them right away. Again, because we're dealing with a society that used to be a big thing, right? You have children involved and divorce and this and that. It's not like nowadays where people go like, divorce, it's like just like a piece of cake, right? So, and for women to have these rights, which are normal rights, right? Back in those days used to be something very strange, like how does she have that right just to, but yeah, when doing the li'an, pretty much is saying at the end that may the curse of God be upon the liar. May the curse of God be upon the liar. If I am lying, may the curse of God be upon me. Right? So, and that takes place, then there is divorce between both of them. And so what I'm trying to say again is that the witnessing of the woman in this case is accepted. 1 person. So again, the bottom line of all of this is that there is, we should not take things out of context. Well, of course not us, but people who actually accuse Islam for being unfair in terms of witnessing, gender witnessing, they are really people who don't know these details or people who take things out of context. The ayah goes on by saying, the witnesses must not refuse when they are summoned. So, if you are being asked to be a witness, you should not be refusing. It's something very important. Why? Because if you refuse, then it makes it hard upon people to do a transaction. You're not helping people. You're supposed to be as a community member or as a citizen or as a part of your ummah, your community, you should be helping the others and not withdrawing from helping the others. So Allah says the witnesses must not refuse when they are summoned. Don't be afraid to witness. You must not be against writing contracts for a fixed period, whether the sum is small or great. So do it. This is more just for you in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and more convenient to establish evidence and remove doubts. So Allah here is explaining that when you do so, you remove those doubts, and at the same time you establish evidence. You do have evidence. So tomorrow you don't say like, oh brother, I took from you 150, and the other one says like, no, you have taken from me 200. You go, no, it's 150. Where is the evidence? Here is the evidence. We have two witnesses, we have something writing, and there is no contradiction at that point. However, if you conduct an immediate transaction among yourselves, then there is no need for you to record it. So if it is something minor, something that does not need to go to that level where you go through that, right? It's something minor, then you don't have to record it, right? You don't have to go into having a scribe and the witnesses and all of that. Let's say you get, as I said earlier, $100 from somebody, right? And then it goes on by saying, then there is no need for you to record it, but call upon witnesses when a deal is finalized. Let no harm come to the scribe or witnesses. If you do, then you have gravely exceeded your limits. So in case you are going to have witnesses, well, let me go back a little bit. Even if it is a major transaction, as you are dealing, right, as you're dealing with the other party, let's say you're taking a loan, you're saying, well, I'm going to give you this much after a month, and then this much later on, and then this much later on, and you're kind of negotiating, not real negotiation, but you are going through details of that loan that you're getting from somebody, that loan that you're getting from somebody, and it is not finalized because the other party also is telling you this and that. Then what do you do in that case? Don't call upon witnesses, don't call upon the scribe to be present as you do this negotiation. Finish first, and then when you come to a conclusion of what you're going to do, right, then have that person, the scribe write it, and then have the witnesses also witness in that case. But at the same time, do not harm the scribe or the witnesses. Like later on tomorrow you go like, oh man, I don't have that money, and you know what? What can I do? Let me just say that there are no witnesses. So I'm going to harm the witness. I'm going to murder, God forbid, the witness. Or I'm going to cause something horrible to the scribe that he won't be able to even provide any documents or anything like that. They do it nowadays. They even they murder judges, and they do all kinds of stuff, as they always did. So it says right here, let no harm come to the scribe or witnesses. Why? Because they're not taking one side. They're just simply witnesses for a transaction that's happening. Don't get upset with them. Don't harm them. If you do, then you have gravely exceeded your limits. Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, be aware of Allah. For Allah is the one who teaches you. So be mindful of Allah, that if you exceed these limits, Allah can have severe punishment upon those who exceed the limits. And at the same time, Allah is the one who teaches you, as you are often reminded of Him, as you have taqwa, because here we have the word وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. Be mindful of Allah. So in other words, as we grow in taqwa, as we grow in righteousness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also teaches us, meaning that He gives us from His wisdom. He opens the doors for us to understand things in a better way as we increase in taqwa. One of my students went to one of my sheikhs in Istanbul and said, give me an advice. After he talked to him and so on, he said, اتق الله ويعلمك الله. And this is actually a general advice that a lot of shuyukhs they give to their students. Ittaqullah wa yu'allimukumullah. Have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will teach you. Allah will make you more learned person. And Allah has perfect knowledge of all the things. Last ayah, I'm going to try to go very swiftly here. If you are on a journey and a scribe cannot be found, then a security can be taken. If you trust one another, then there is no need for a security, but the debtor should honor his trust by repaying the debt. And let them fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their Lord. And do not conceal the testimony, for whoever conceals it, their hearts are indeed sinful. And Allah fully knows what you do. So if you're in a journey and a scribe cannot be found, you are trying to come up with a big transaction here, then a security can be taken. What is a security? A deposit. Alright? A deposit can be taken. What is a deposit? Something that is very valuable. You have it with you as you are in the journey. You may have $1,000 watch, for example. You may have some gold with you. You may have, you may have something that is with you that is worth money. And then you can leave that as deposit. Why? So the person who's giving you the loan can have a guaranteed peace of mind that you're going to return that back. So if you trust one another, then there is no need for security. If you trust one another, meaning that if you had contracts before, if you know the person that is trustworthy, you have no problems with that person, then there is no need for that security, for that deposit. But the debtor should honor this trust by repaying the debt. So don't betray people. The Quran is saying, do not betray people. Don't make people trust in you and then betray that trust. Remember that the person who betrays the trust is or exercises a character of the munafiq, a hypocrite. Right? There are three things. One of those three things of the munafiq, three characteristics of the hypocrite is that وَإِذَا أَتُمِنَ خَانَ. When something is entrusted, that person betrays the trust. So don't betray the trust. If people trust you, they know you as a sincere person, as somebody who can pay back. Don't play around with people. Like you give your word, fulfill the word. People be like, how many times you help people and then people later on, and you trust, right? You trust the person. You give something and then you think that that person, man, is going to return that back. And then all of a sudden nothing happens. Years take, well, you have betrayed the trust in that case. So again, you have fulfilled one of the characteristics of the hypocrite in this case. So, and let them fear Allah, their Lord. So be reminded that if you are betraying the person, you cannot in reality betray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not conceal the testimony. So the testimony that is there, do not conceal it. Don't say, oh, we have nothing signed, we have nothing agreed upon. There is a testimony. And whoever conceals it, their hearts are indeed sinful. Subhanallah. He didn't say they are sinful, but their hearts are sinful. Why? Because the heart is your essence. So essentially you are sinful. Essentially you are committing haram. Not just something minor, but from your heart. And remember when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the heart, He says that يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On the day of judgment, the wealth and the children, they're not going to matter, right? They're not going to benefit. But what's going to benefit is a sincere heart. A good heart. A sound heart. So again, in terms of when you sin, when you betray the trust of the others, it is as your heart is committing that sin. As your essence, as the most pure thing in your body, which is the heart, that is committing the sin. You're getting dirty internally by doing so. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fully knows what you do. So whether you do this way, you go this way, or you go that way, Allah is aware of everything that you do. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who are sincere, who are honorable people, who keep their amanas, their trusts, And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who are people who when they get a debt, they try to pay it as soon as possible. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.